Recording is on.
Nice.
All right, welcome to the weekly DXdao call where we talk about the products and recent happenings. Happy Thanksgiving from the United States. I'm thankful this year for the DXdao and everything we've accomplished. So excited to get going here. We usually start with products, and Omen is at the top. So Geronimo, you want to give us the latest?
Yes, we're finalizing a new version, which will primarily include a verification process for a market. So right now, it's very unclear how to get verified. This will be fixed with the new version, and in this version, only Klarus is functional. But we will soon hopefully integrate the DXdao as a verification process too, just because it's already seems like that most of our verified markets are verified by the DXdao. And regarding XDAI, we're like very close in terms of putting the backend ready for an XDAI testnet version, which means it's like completely connected to the Klarus mainnet. A Klarus test version where we can talk from an XDAI testnet to the Klarus test system, and with that we can actually like completely test how we will call arbitrators on XDAI through the bridge to the mainnet Klarus system. So it's very important that we actually test the whole process, and this requires a lot of installment on those test networks. And we're like almost there. And quite interestingly, there's like a high chance right now that we will actually not do a lot of new stuff on the front end. It's like changing addresses, and it should actually work. Besides, yeah, so it looks promising, and yeah, can't wait to start working on the front end for the Omen XDAI version. Any questions?
I guess there was some action with the Genesis contract on Omen over the last week in that market, or any kind of thoughts on that, or how did that go?
Do you mean specifically for the Omen Squad?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I guess the Omen Squad was providing liquidity, but I just think that's like a popular market, and so I guess it moved pretty quickly there. And so how? Yeah, and just as like a major market, I feel like that we've been doing in the presidential election, and then this one. So I think it had a like 100 ETH, 120 ETH of volume or something. So it's a pretty like popular market.
Yeah, this was actually an interesting one because we had two currencies available, which is Ether and USDC, and both markets got some traction. And yeah, that's it.
Are there any updates on the conditional token explorer that's from Gnosis, right?
Yeah, they planned to have it released. I guess it will happen soon. Or I don't think anyone heard from Gnosis about the conditional token explorer, right? It seems like they're still fixing some bugs.
Still working it out. Cool.
Yeah.
Any other questions on Omen? You can move to Mesa. So on the Mesa side, this has been talked about in previous calls, but there's a new release that was up this week, and there's actually a proposal now suggesting an upgrade to Mesa.eth. There's a bunch of little things, but the more significant changes include more than 2 hops on the order book. So it's a Gnosis protocol supports ring trades. So, if you're going from like currency A to currency D, it's possible to go from A to B, then B to C, and then C to D, right? And the order book wasn't showing something that far chained, and now it will go more, but it's also queuing off of the estimation service, which is related to who the solvers are. The other big change is so-called like smart pricing, and really this is just a more nuanced approach to giving you the quote on the interface. So if you think about if you have a trade between USDC and DXD, you probably think about prices in terms of dollars. And a lot of times on order books like Mesa currently or previously, if you flipped it, you'd get the quote in DXD, and maybe that's kind of hard to reason about because you don't really know what that number is. And so with smart pricing, it actually will detect whether one of the two in the pair is a stable coin, and will always, if it is a stable coin, will always show the quote in the stable coin price, no matter which way you're going. And it's actually a little more complicated than that. It actually has a rank order of which ones which types of currencies to show the quote in. So first is USD stablecoins. After that is Euro stablecoins. After that is Ether or WETH and XDAI, and then after that it's just kind of whatever. So basically, if you have in that order any of those pairs, it will like showing the quote in that currency. And there's also some smaller improvements on the buy and sell and the orders table, and other exciting news on Mesa. We have on the call. He has been actively learning about and trying to get onboarded as a product manager for Mesa, something that has been very much needed now for some time. So I mean, that's exciting to see. I don't know, Martin, if you wanted to say a few words here on this call, just to introduce yourself maybe for the community. You're muted, Martin, sorry.
Sorry. I'm surprised that I have to introduce myself. So yeah, I'm Martin. I'm
yeah, I know we all know you, but this is like the recorded
I
weekly
know,
call. So there's some people maybe only watching this one. Yeah.
Yes, of course. I'm involved in crypto since almost 9 years, and but I had like a company in a web agency for the last 15 years too, and I stepped out of my web agency, and now I'm trying to be useful for the DXdao. That's the short version. So I did the last few days, I did talk to some people. An hour ago, I did talk to Jen, who is also on the call, about the strategy, about building Mesa, to build it more for an IDO protocol, also maybe to change the UX, and in the long run, maybe also change the protocol in a way that it fits better for IDOs. And I also did yesterday or so, I did send it to some people, and I think I can put it in the chat now. We did think or talk about make some packages for IDOs, and it's not that we really want to sell these packages like they are now. I did a sheet. It's more for me to think who our customers are and what they need, and I think the most important thing about it what I came up with is that if we make a deal with and we get some token, so the best deal for us would be to get like liquidity token in a swapper pool at the end. I know if projects are willing to do that, because then they also have to provide the real ETH for this or the pair, but this would be the best way to sell our services in a way, because then we also could agree that we don't sell this or make some vesting on it or a multi-signature wallet for it, but then we have like some base liquidity for the pair afterwards. Yes, I think that's it. So next week there should be a call with Gnosis about the strategy with the Gnosis protocol. I will be in, and yeah, any question?
Yeah, it's a public call right next Tuesday.
Yes.
I think that is going
Yes.
to be talking about Gnosis's plans for Gnosis protocol version 2, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so that'll be exciting to see what kind of.
And I also did a very small, like a strategy. It's only like a few sentences, but I see like two strategies. The one strategy is like to make a dedicated new interface for Mesa for IDOs, and the other strategy will be just take the current interface, fork it, and then like strip all the stuff we don't need for IDOs out of it, or try to, and then more an iterative approach to change it. I don't know, maybe we should have some deep discussion about that, but I think there's two ways to do it. One is to start really to think what the end user needs, or even the teams who use Mesa for IDOs, what they need, and then to design a fresh interface, or to go the iterative way and build from Mesa how it is now. So, but it depends also how many. Yeah, I think the new way, if we do it the new way, then we need more development power, and also more like research fast how we do it. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. And yeah, it does seem like IDO use case is what we've seen as the most popular use for Mesa, and so that I think makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it gets at a couple of kind of meta questions, like what's the overall product strategy for DXdao, which I think maybe we'll talk a little bit more later, and how we're going to go about that. And then yeah, also in terms of what's our dev capacity, how do we onboard new, and how do we know how many devs we need, and that kind of thing. So I think we'll talk a little bit more about that later in the call. Yeah, any questions on Mesa before we move on?
The hackathon. Do you have any updates on the? Looks like you're muted.
So
I know, Christopher, maybe.
yeah, so like it's all submitted to Gitcoin. So like the hackathon is starting in early December, I think the 3rd December, if I'm not mistaken, and then it runs for 2 weeks. So I think we are like all good from our side. I made Martin also like a repository owner, so he can also like respond to like any comments or like, I don't know, questions, etc. We also have one additional workshop slot available for 1 hour. That is kind of like problematic, right? Since we have 2 bounties, one for Omen and one for Mesa. And so, yeah, we kind of like have to decide who gets that 1 hour workshop slot.
What is the workshop about? Like, how does it work?
It's kind of like an introduction to the technology, I guess, like for people who want to build on, with the bounties.
But we are only allowed to do it for the workshop, this communication.
Well, I mean, we can definitely do it outside as well. It's just we will not be able to streamline communication for that workshop, right? So this will be like, it will be like on the official Gitcoin schedule, this workshop.
Okay.
Would it make sense to do a DXdao one and split it between Omen and Mesa, or would that kind of undermine?
That would work as well. Gitcoin also suggested that. The problem with that approach is that usually like people come always like 10 minutes late to these kind of things. And then you kind of like lost 20 minutes on the whole thing. I mean, that might work as well. but ultimately it's up to you. I guess it would be much less efficient.
Yeah, I guess we could talk more offline about kind of what makes logistically the most sense there.
That's actually a good point, right? So if it's just really Gnosis protocol is the underlying technology that that is going to be talked about, then this 1 hour might actually probably be best served to explain that.
Yeah, Mesa is on Gnosis protocol. Omen uses the Gnosis conditional token framework. So yeah, they're a little bit different. And yeah, they're both of them are fairly involved and technical. So yeah, I mean, I could easily see an hour for either one. Maybe we'll just have to pick, but I guess we can kind of follow up after this to figure that out. It's exciting though to see that we'll have a bounty for Mesa, and especially with this kind of renewed interest on focus on the IDO side.
Nice.
All right. Yep.
Maybe one question also on the IDO side. Is it like Karak? I mean, would it be against the ethos of DXdao to also onboard users with solutions like Arcane or like Fortmatic or Ethereum, where basically we allow them to sign up with Google Mail and then kind of like have them use like a fiat on-ramp, etc.?
Yeah, I think that's fine. We actually worked with Ethereum on Omen. We've been sponsoring gasless transactions on those. So I mean, I think like the more wallets, the merrier in a lot of ways. We do like, prefer some decentralized ones though too.
Yeah. Well, there might be a slight different opinion with like things like Taurus, where you sign in with Google or sign in with Twitter, and it creates your wallet off of that. But Ethereum and Portis and those wallets, we have a plan to, Omen on XDAI could be with like the right onboarding like type of wallet, like email and password, and then a way to buy XDAI directly in that wallet. You could see that being the first DXdao application that like you could send to your cousin and he'd be able to like bet on a sports game on that market, like using that tool. So it's like the wallet experience is key, but I think DXdao still has to decide which of those wallet experiences we prefer.
Yeah, I guess it's important to realize that I guess like the majority of users will not bother with private keys, etc. In the long run.
Yeah. Actually, I think DAOstack, and maybe Elon, but DAOstack has the Taurus embedded in their framework, I think. Is that correct?
Yeah. Sorry, I missed like the context for this, but yeah, I mean, it's fairly easy to integrate.
Like a user's wallet experience when they're interacting with DXDAO's applications and things. Make it as easy as possible, right? But
yeah, and I think the question was, is it kind of philosophically against DXdao ethos to use and support wallets that cater to a more centralized experience or more Web 2 like experience?
Yeah, so I can tell that I had like when we chose to like integrate Taurus, it was between Taurus and Fortmatic, which are now called Magic. And the difference between them is that Fortmatic has a button that, forgot your password, right? And then if you have a forgot your password, then that means that you have a centralized database with all the passwords. And I don't believe Taurus has it. And also Taurus doesn't hold your private key. They have like a multi-party computation. That's why we chose them. So.
Yeah, and similarly, I think Ethereum does not hold, like, I don't think they have a recover your password option. Like they do support the use case of passwords, and I think your private key is encrypted and stored, like password protected in the cloud. Like using a smart contract wallet disposal. So I mean, I think they support kind of a spectrum of decentralization. I don't know if that's the same for Taurus, but
yeah, like as someone who wants to build a product which is used by humans, I don't think, like I personally, I'm fine with providing gateways for people in a variety of ways. Like it's not up to us to decide like how people actually want to access our products. At least from my view, if those gateways help us get new users, I'm fine with including those. It's up to the people how they use our products. At the end of the day, the products itself, our products on themselves are like as decentralized as possible, and this is something which is awesome.
yeah, I'd agree with that. As long as at the end of the day, the product itself is decentralized and supports access through decentralized tools, then extending support to whatever tools that the end user wants seems reasonable to me. Okay, cool. Should we move on to Swapper next?
That we can do.
John,
Oh, someone
just
said
asking about the new Mesa version. When did you say it's going to be deployed?
There is a proposal right now that's up. I don't think it's been boosted yet, but so it could be live. You can check it out through the link on the proposal. But I think it's 4 days after getting boosted and a 1 day, or maybe it's 3 days after getting boosted. It's hard to keep all these straight, but I think it's it's 3 days after getting boosted. So if it were boosted now, it would be live sometime Monday, I think. So
yeah, I think we should try to boost it as soon as possible, because some users complain now. I see on Telegram and stuff that they have problems approving or depositing and all kind of stuff. I think it's from Ancho said that he thinks it started since the Ethereum hard fork that happened. I'm not exactly sure what's causing it, but I'm actually, to be honest, I'm even not sure that the new version will solve it, but I hope so.
Yeah, anybody who's interested should check that out. It's under the generic scheme ENS public resolver. Obviously, anybody can stake gen and boost that. Also, yeah, if we have people taking more of an interest in Mesa, it's good to, when you're voting on these things, it's good to actually check out the DApp and stuff and make sure it's working. Yeah. All right, should we move to Swapper?
Sure. All right. This week we have worked on mobile version of Swapper, or just a responsive version of Swapper, fixing bugs, fixing graphical errors, just stuff that was blocking the mobile view. All of those should be fixed. We had Bram helping us with that, and Bram is no longer working with us. He had a trial period, and there was some issues, both from his side and from our side, I would say. Federico has been doing great work on conditional farming for Swapper, and I think me and him will go through some stuff tomorrow and see the status of that. I'm working on the next phase of the releases of Swapper. I'm working on the government's interface, and I'm ready to have one new developer doing trial work. I'm gonna onboard Eugene tomorrow and give him some tasks over there and see how that goes. We have some work to do on the new interface. And that's from the dApp side.
Great. And we also have the deployer contracts are now on mainnet. There's a, I don't know if somebody has the link. I'm not on DAO Talk on this computer, but yeah, there's a post on DAO Talk about the swapper deployer contracts being deployed to mainnet. So then the next step there is just funding it, and then the deployer can be called, and that would launch the core contracts, which after those are live, those addresses, once they're created, will be able to be used in the dApp that Zat was just talking about, so that that can then be deployed to swapper.eth. Augusto, how much ETH needs to be sent to the deployer contracts? Do we know? Just looking at the post.
One way at minimum.
So it would work even with that small, like the gas costs for the deployment aren't.
Even if you send one way, it should work. Any value. But ideally, I think we will send more, because the account who makes a deploy, who calls the deploy function, will receive the balance that is there. So it can be like a reward.
So the leftover balance goes where?
Nowhere. I mean, once you execute the deploy function, it's going to, I mean, as soon as you send Ether, it's going to be able to call the deploy function that can be called by any account, and that account will receive the entire balance of the contract. And the contract will become useless because it won't be able to do anything else.
Gotcha. So any excess amount is sort of like a bounty, but and then I guess the gas costs are kind of high though. So like the deployment call itself will probably cost a decent amount, right, for the whoever has to do that.
Well, yeah, it cost me more than $200 to make the DXswap deploy. So I guess it's going to cost more than an Ether, maybe, to deploy it, or near one Ether. Yeah, that's like $150.
Yeah.
I'm still getting $230, Chris. Like, we freeze the price, right?
So I guess for the funding, it would be good to have something around an Ether or more to this. And I think also, you could also request reimbursement for the deployment costs from the DAO to get XDAI, schmexDAI.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Anything else on Swapper? Chris, did you want to say anything?
No, just I guess we had a call with TBTC or Thesis team yesterday, or maybe it was the day before, and that kind of went good. It was kind of on treasury management, but there was kind of some overlap maybe in thinking about how Swapper could be part of the treasury diversification strategy, and specifically maybe with TBTC as it's kind of emerging as a viable option for like trust minimized Bitcoin on Ethereum.
So yeah, I had this call with the business development lead for, I guess there's kind of two companies that branch out of the same one, Kpis and Thesis, and the Kpis is the token that you might be familiar with, and TBTC is one of their projects. Yeah, it's a Bitcoin on Ethereum project that is backed by, it requires locking Bitcoin separately, and then on Ethereum, the TBTC itself is also collateralized by Ether and Keep token, and this is kind of to be there as penalty if they ran away with the BTC or something. So that kind of like creates the trust there and the backing. And the impetus was diversification of the treasury. Like, some people had the idea like it would be good to put some of our nearly all Ether treasury into Bitcoin, as well as stable coins and stuff. So we had the call, and then, but if we're going to do this and get BTC in the treasury, then we could also take that BTC and put it as liquidity into Swapper. So it's almost like killing two birds with one stone, right? Like we'd get diversification of the treasury, and we'd be able to add liquidity to Swapper. And and if the goal is to have a balance of BTC and ETH, then I would think that the impermanent loss potential there is really less of an issue, right? Because the goal is diversification anyways. So keeping it 50-50 out of whatever that allocation is would probably make sense.
And we've kind of come to the same realization on stable coins too, right? So it's like providing liquidity with, or like diversifying the treasury to stable coins can also kind of be used with Swapper. So I think there's, I think we should think about this with all of our products in a way, is kind of how do we seed them and kind of use a treasury for that.
Yeah, it's how can the treasury double as liquidity backing our products? I think that's super powerful.
And making, the treasury should be making money doing that, right? In addition to kind of powering the product. So it should be a win-win.
Exactly. And what's interesting about TBTC too, if you look at the on-chain liquidity, there is quite a bit in Curve, but the way Curve works is it's only like assets. So you can exchange WBTC or SBTC for TBTC on Curve, and there's a pretty deep liquidity there. But if you go to like a Uniswap or a SushiSwap, there's very little, I would say relatively speaking, liquidity. It's in like the hundreds of thousands, I think, at the moment. And that, I think, is an opportunity as well for Swapper, right? So you also have this kind of opportunity to compete in a market that isn't that well developed for, something like TBTC. Andrew Kane had this report where he analyzed it as the most decentralized option for getting BTC on Ethereum. So something like that aligns really well with the ethos of decentralization and being decentralized maximalists. So I think, you have these layers of opportunities, right? We can diversify the treasury. We can then provide liquidity to Swapper. We can maybe even dominate this pair without too much effort on Swapper. And then, there's potential, I think, beyond that for PR with thesis keep about these things. Like, I think we only just kind of barely touched on this subject with their biz dev lead, but the next steps are to put a channel together on their Discord with the folks that joined the call about a couple days ago. And I mean, anybody else here or from the community who wants, join the Treasury channel in Kpis and ask about it. We can make sure that you get added to this discussion with and about TBTC, because I think there's a lot of potential there, especially from the PR side. A DAO acquiring Bitcoin, the liquidity on Swapper, they are even putting aside 5% of their token supply of Keep to be used as incentives for like on-chain liquidity. So, I imagine they're already probably talking with Uniswap or SushiSwap, et cetera. But it would be great to see Swapper be part of that. And I don't know, this stuff gets me super excited because I think this is where you start to see the power of what we're doing, right? Like what DXdao is all about. We have a suite of products. It's controlled in a decentralized way by a DAO, and there's synergies that can happen here between the products and other projects, and in a level of flexibility that I think a lot of other projects probably would have difficulty exercising. But anyways, I get excited about this stuff. So, but anybody, any other questions on Swapper or those things? Cool. If not, we could touch on Rails briefly, but I don't think there's any big news there. Federico, do you want to?
Yeah. As you said, there's no major news. I'm still kind of testing the latest improvements that I made. I've been pretty busy with Swapper these last few days. So, but I think and I hope that maybe next week already I can have bigger news on Rails. the like 1.1 release is near. I'm just, as I said, I'm just a bit busy on Swapper, but I'm working on it, and yeah, but no major news for now.
Yeah, we're keeping Federico plenty busy on Swapper, so Rails will get some love before long. How about governance? Like Nylon, did you have anything to update on?
Governance or BizDev?
Sorry. Like governance, like from a product perspective, like from the tooling and like XDAI, etc.
Okay, so I mean, we have the DXdao deployed with the multi-generic scheme, which multi-generic call scheme, I guess it's the name. I really think this could solve like many of the problems that we have. It's deployed on XDAI with no whitelist, meaning that it can call any Ethereum contract. I think it's a pretty cool addition. So that's one thing. Another thing is Ezra and I want to run basically a sort of like an Alchemy feedback calls, and ideally would have people from DXdao join and participate as well, to kind of get you up to speed with the Alchemy roadmap and what's planned there, and get your basically your feedback and direction on what you think is good and what's not. I think that's it in that regard. So yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and this ability to call any contract, that's something that we've, I think, hesitated with on mainnet, but it will be cool to experiment with on XDAI where the stakes are lower. That's super exciting.
Yeah, there's a on DXdao on XDAI. There's a live proposal to create a competition scheme related to sourcing Omen markets from the community. So it'd be the first competition on Alchemy that DXdao has organized. So rep holders should, if they like the details of that competition, they should vote on XDAI for that proposal. And the details of it are in there. And then if it passes, it's just for a small amount of rep, like 0.05% rep for 3 award winners is the reward of the competition. And so that would be what is leaving XDAI DAO if the competition gets approved, and then the competition starts. And so that would be, we've done a signal proposal. We've done a few proposals on like older versions of DXdao, but this is now the good live one that we're using. Rep holders all have rep on this DAO, and we can start using it for things like this. It's not fun. It's not funded with much. It has one XDAI in it right now, so it's not funded right now, but we can still use it for signal and for competitions.
Yeah, competitions, that's awesome. Okay, since we're running out of time here, just anything else on the product governance side before we go to the BizDev call? All right, Nylon, back to you.
Yeah, so we had the BizDev call on Monday. A few things that happened there is kind of, I think, like a necessity rose to have ownership for the different leads and partnerships that we are talking to. So like Aluna and API 3 are like the current ones right now. But yeah, and I think this kind of relates to something we talked about earlier in the call, which is a central place for sort of CRM for DXdao. So that's something we should explore as well. And yeah, we talked about XDAI deployment, competition, and yeah, I think that's mostly it.
Yeah, I think that a big focus was partnerships, and beyond Aluna and API 3, which have upcoming IDOs on Mesa, there's also the relationship with DAOstack, relationship with Gnosis, now recently TBTC or Kpis, and the about to be announced relationship with Status. Thanks for reminding me, Chris. Yeah, so there's a bunch going on, and I think getting organized on this is a big deal and important. So
Yeah, on that point, there's a document that I've shared with a few people, and I'll share it later today in the BizDev channel with a proposed process, and shows the tracking documents and the process up to now, and then how it can be improved, and how it can create one central place that anyone related, like in a decentralized collective, anyone that gets word of a potential, I call them all opportunities, because they're more than just partnerships, but they're all opportunities. And so anyone that has or comes across an opportunity, and they come in from all different angles, knows where to go, where to share the information, and then it's a place that everyone can reference and track to see, who, if they have a question about that opportunity, who's the person they can ask about it, who's the lead on that specific opportunity. And so that document exists. It's currently in Airtable. We're trying to figure out if that's the best way to organize it. But keep an eye out on the BizDev channel, and anyone can read the proposed plan, and then we can alter it, and then we can implement it. Yeah.
Good stuff. All right, should we move to the governance call? There's always a lot to talk about there. Chris, actually, Chris just disappeared. So.
Sorry, I was just a little loud. Yeah, the governance call yesterday was pretty good. I actually, so the video is good to check out, but I think we had a pretty good discussion on the forum there. And so kind of the 4 big points yesterday that are high level, and I think relate to a lot of the different discussions going on prior to the call. Elon talking about the BizDev kind of partnership and tracking those. We've kind of come into that on the similar level of the governance side of like, how do we kind of keep track of these things in different groups? So Christopher from 1KX kind of had the whole teams idea of maybe it's now starting time for us to put some more structure on that. Secondly, Pulp had some good ideas on how to engage rep holders on larger strategic movements, right? So maybe a rep holder doesn't want to vote on every worker proposal, but they want to have some say on like a quarterly or yearly document for specific products, or budget updates, I think is a big thing, right? So especially if you can roll the team's idea with a specific budget, then you kind of can have higher level things where we can engage more of the rep community. This led naturally to a discussion on KPIs, right? So key performance indicators, or how we're evaluating workers. So now we're kind of, I guess we're getting, talked a little bit about onboarding, but we're probably around like 13, 14, 15 people that are relatively full-time or kind of consistently getting worker proposals on the team. And so how do we make sure that what people are putting in their worker proposal is being followed up on in a way of reflection for that person, for DXdao, but also some like kind of level of accountability. There's a question of who, of course, who and what and how comes up with these KPIs, and so we need to kind of do some digging on that. But I think this is kind of just like the first step in figuring out how we kind of have some accountability. And then lastly, on worker proposals, right? The idea of like a proof of work, in the onboarding experience, how do we decipher or distinguish between workers that are kind of proposing different things in a short amount of time? And so part of that is having like links to external work. This is like for developers, obviously like a GitHub, but also having like community members vouch for you as a way of kind of introducing you to the community. So I think a lot of kind of ideas there. I think the one that we really need to kind of move forward with in the short term is like the whole like teams and budget ideas kind of coming together. And we had done some of this thinking in like mid-September on both of these, and we'd actually put up a budget that kind of projected some of the onboarding we've done over the last month or two. But at that point, we weren't really, things were kind of moving so fast. It was DeFi summer, and we hadn't had as much kind of structure. But now, if you kind of look at the different areas, we do have owners that are kind of, or leaders, really, I think is a better word. I think leader is something we should be thinking a lot about here, that we're looking for people to lead DXdao in different areas, that we have leaders that are kind of emerging across different areas. And so now it's kind of, I think, time to put a little bit more structure on that. So Sky has done some work on like the different ways that people are connected and working on different projects across DXdao, because it's obviously very confusing for someone to get up to speed. So yeah, I think we just need to work on all this and yeah, I don't know if people have questions, comments, things to add, because I think this is an important conversation.
Something I would add to it actually came up on the dev call on Tuesday. You know, that this kind of some of these meta questions about how we work, and you know, the dev call on Tuesday is pretty focused on kind of covering the basis of what's happening and making sure we're digging in, technically speaking. But you know, so we were, some of us, including, or maybe me, was asking like, where are we going to answer some of these questions? And I think Augusto had the idea of doing like a bi-monthly call that is really just about worker responsibilities, you know, kind of reviewing where people are at, having discussions about what they should be putting in for their responsibilities coming up next, and also helping to address any onboarding questions or issues. Basically a place and a time that's scheduled for us to get organized about who's doing what, and making sure that it's a healthy work environment from that perspective. So I thought that was a good idea. We haven't launched these calls yet, but I'm hoping that that happens.
Coordinators is so long, Sky. I think that's the same thing about opportunities. We need shorter, hipper terminology.
Yeah, I would maybe add, like, it would be useful to have some action points, like on the points that you made, like what are we going to do about it so that it gets, you know, into our system, like what are, like, practically what are we going to do?
So what do you think we should do?
You mentioned a lot of stuff, maybe for, I don't know, like regarding maybe new users, like maybe once they make a proposal, like everybody, like if they say they work on Omen, maybe everybody from Omen should like engage on DAO Talk, for example. Like everyone must comment something, or, you know, acknowledge it and be aware of it, or I don't know.
Yeah, I think the DAO Talk thread for proposal area is a very underutilized, like, kind of comment for, like, people are putting like what they should be working on, scope, like we should all be interested in that and like commenting on that and like putting some thought into that. And I think, as you said, like if it's for Omen, then we should have like Geronimo or someone kind of working on it. And I think that kind of, again, ties in with the whole idea of the teams and leaders emerging, so that when things come in, when there's a worker that comes in, it's like clear who should know like how to evaluate this. But I just the DAO Talk thing, I think, is a really underutilized component. But there is some conversation on those job heads too already, but I think we should just do more.
Yeah, and maybe like
at least the team itself needs to signal approval or not, right? And that's like the bottom-up approach we want to have, I guess. That I trust John. If he's signaling that some worker is doing a great job, then I'm fine with the worker's proposal. So there's like bottom-up trust involved here, and at least the team, who's the person like working with, needs to acknowledge that like it's a great proposal.
And maybe like regarding KPIs, like we can maybe like make a list of KPIs, and then at least like have things in consideration, like for beginning, like maybe have this discussion on that. So we put it in motion. Like we don't have to enforce it in some way, but just to have it.
Well, I think KPIs may need their own working group, but KPI working group sounds a little intimidating. But I think KPIs will be kind of very unique to each worker and team, and so I think we need to put some thought into that. And I think we also need to kind of like well, what are they being evaluated on in terms of like product strategy and our own goals.
Yeah.
I just want to say something about KPIs. I think KPIs are like, they're a part of OKRs. And I think I've said this a couple of times. And like, when you just do KPIs,
Just
like,
hearing more letters now, just more letters.
Cooler words. We need cooler words, not like these boring corporate terminology.
No, well, at least we should define them, because like I think if for a lot of people you're just saying they're just going to hear letters.
Yeah,
I said keep
So
OKRs.
KPIs are like, the actual like metrics, right? We want to get whatever 1,000, I don't know, 1 million followers on Twitter, right? But that's like a subset of the objective of the organization or the objective of the department. Maybe the DXdao wants to be the most influential organization in Ethereum, and then under that you would kind of like start breaking that down to, each department with its own tasks and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's something that's I want to say a bit more complex, but it's I actually think that I don't know, like a 4-hour session with someone from anyone who wants with the DXdao, and we could probably like nail something like that. But we like, this is with a professional, someone who's been doing that, like advising organizations.
Yeah, good suggestion.
Yeah, I don't know if she does that actually, but I can ask her. I was thinking of, the DXdao could just like write from his Twitter, like from the Twitter, to say like, is there any like OKR expert in the crowd who wants to help us, build our strategy, build our vision, like take the what do you call it, the manifesto, and implement that into kind of like actionable like organization direction, is what I would call it.
Yeah, I see there's almost like 3 prongs to what we're talking about here, right? Like there's sort of the low-hanging fruit of like simple process improvements that, I think, like Violet is saying here, just make sure that the teams are accountable to people who want to onboard them, and providing feedback on DAO Talk. That's like a simple process change, right? Or just being clear on that accountability, or like the meetings Augusto was talking about. That's just an easy process change where now we have a venue to discuss these responsibilities. I think another prong is just kind of the technology we're using and how things are organized, right? Like and that comes down to like, is it on DAO Talk? Is it on Alchemy? Like, where do people go? Like the website, I think we have a lot of room for improvement on that. I think people get lost very quickly, and that's going to take a little bit of work, I think, on our side. We can't just like snap our fingers and make these things all arrange themselves exactly how we want. It's going to take some development and design work there. And I think the third prong is like the strategy stuff, like what Nylon's saying here. Like, what is the meta goals here that we're talking about, and how do we address product strategy and stuff?
So just looking at the calendar, we are heading into the last month of 2020. And I think this is all kind of like a good opportunity for us to like sometime in the next couple weeks, right, where we can really talk about these things and try to go into, find a time to, because I think we're gonna have to like talk about these things, get everything out, and then we're gonna have to agree on them, and then we're gonna have to kind of flesh it out. And so I just think our kind of goal should be to figure that out so we can really go into 2021 like feeling sweet.
Yeah, let's get something on the calendar for next week to start. I would say, I think there's a lot to do here, and it's pretty important. So
we need a name. I'm trying to think what we call this initiative.
Like, what is a working group for?
Yeah, kind of. Aqua. Aqua is just a name.
To call something Aqua, and
just a name in need.
And our organizational improvements.
Yeah, it's got to be maybe an acronym of some sorts to play on that. But yeah,
I mean, I think it's operations. Like what we're talking about is operations. Maybe we can come up with a better name for that. But like an operations meeting is, I think, what it is. So yeah, it'd be cool.
Ops.
Black Ops. Yeah, there you go.
DXops is cool, actually.
Yeah.
That's what it is, DXops.
All right, awesome. Well, we're at the hour, and I've got a lot of turkey to eat, guys. So, any last closing comments or questions?
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Everyone can celebrate Thanksgiving and be grateful for something.
Happy Thanksgiving.
But yeah, I'm like John. I am grateful for DXdao this year. Both is like a thing that I'm doing and engaging with, but also like kind of where we're trying to drive it and go. So everyone enjoy your turkey.
Yeah, it's been a super amazing ride so far, and it's just overwhelming at times, but it's really crazy and great. I think we're doing some really awesome stuff. Some really important stuff for decentralization. So it's always good to take some time and reflect.
I agree.
Cool. See you guys.
All right, guys.
Okay.
All right.
See ya.
Bye-bye.
How you doing?
Bye.